Hey everyone, this is Brandon Oliveris from Co-Creation Coaching, and I am here today with another Reader's Questions video. The Reader's Questions videos are a chance for me every week to answer your questions about the law of attraction. If you have a question you'd like to be answered on Reader's Questions, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org/ask, and I would be happy to answer. So today's question is about pain and sacrifice. Not necessarily my favorite topic, but I think that it's an important one to discuss because a lot of people get confused about this topic. So it's definitely something that we should be discussing. So this is rather a longer question, and I'm going to read the whole thing, unlike what I usually do, because the whole thing I think is important for understanding where this person's coming from. I have put up an abridged version of the quote that you'll see as I'm reading it, and you should see it right now. But I'm going to read the full version here. So our reader asks, I'd love to get your take on how to act on manifestation goals in the context of a life with lots of responsibilities. I get a lot of advice about minor actions that will improve or even just maintain life, most of which require a little bit of hurt. Not a lot, but enough to sting a little. For example, maybe nutritionists say swap one food choice for a different one each day, and financial advisors say cut one minor expense per day to increase retirement savings. And then, of course, there's exercise, bureaucracy, paperwork, caring for aging relatives, etc. None of these is a big pain in themselves, but I find that when I add them all up, plus the hurts a little choices for my manifestation goals, I'm dying a death of 1,000 cuts. In other words, all those small pains add up into a lousy life. It makes sense that you have to sacrifice a little to show the universe you mean business. But how do you work that into a life where you already have a lot of minor sacrifices? I'd hate to say, well, I'll just forget about being healthy or saving money or taking care of dependents and work on manifesting my goals instead. So that's her question. I gotta say, I just sort of feel a little depressed even just reading it. I'm not making fun of it. I just... that's not really how this works, and it does make me sad that someone's experiencing in that way. So the first thing I want to say is that life is not about pain. I read this question and I just get pain, sacrifice, pain, etc. And that's not what it's about. I mean, I'm not, one of those fluffy, feel good, like just feel good and everything's going to work out types of people, that. But you're supposed to overall be feeling better. That's sort of the goal, right? And, I've said before, yes, that your goals will hurt a bit. They will have a bit of tension. But it shouldn't be to this level where you feel like, literally her words, a death of 1,000 cuts. That's not what we're going for. That's not what the universe is going for with life. It's just not about pain. That's not what we're here for. So, I don't want people to get the idea that, I'm saying you should sacrifice. I think this is coming from a recent post of mine where I talked about how you need to invest. This is a recent podcast where you need to invest in your goals. I talked about that in episode number 22 of Co-Create Your Life. And, in that podcast, I did talk about it's going to hurt a little bit. You should give up your time or money or energy in some way towards your goal that'll let the universe know, hey, I'm serious about this. This is what I want. But I didn't mean it in such a sense that you have to sacrifice, you have to be in suffering and pain and that sort of thing. I just mean that when you want to get your goal, it's going to hurt a little bit. It's going to be a little bit painful, but it shouldn't be overwhelming. You know, this kind of investment, this kind of small tension is just kind of, telling the universe, like I said, that I'm serious about this, but it's not this huge thing. I've compared it before to the feeling you get after exercising a lot where your muscles hurt, or even when you wake up the next day and everything everything hurts because your muscles are being broken down so that they can get stronger. But it's not like breaking an arm. Okay? If you feel like you're breaking an arm, or you've, let's say, keeping with exercise, you've torn a muscle or something like that, or torn a tendon, you're doing it wrong. I mean, it's not supposed to feel like that, but there's supposed to be a little bit of pain that tells you, yeah, I'm doing work here. I'm breaking down the muscle. It's going to build up even stronger and that kind of thing. It's this moderation. And that's really vital here. So it's not about pain, but, of course, it's not going to be 100% pleasant as you're working towards your goal. So you need a bit of balance in that way. So, you also bring up all these other things in life that are small little pains and that add up to this, death of 1,000 cuts. I'm sorry to go back to that same phrase, but it really just exemplifies what I'm talking about and the kind of energy behind this question. Those things that are little pains, you mentioned swapping different food choices. You mentioned cutting on minor expenses. You mentioned caring for aging relatives, things like that. And, I get where you're coming from in a way, only because it's a very common perspective out there. But I would look at your subconscious and ask yourself whether you have a belief that life has to hurt in order to be successful, or just that life has to hurt. I don't even get a sense of, well, I can only be successful if I have these pains. I just get that, well, these pains are just a part of life. And so I would look at your subconscious, look at what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're believing, and ask yourself, do I believe that life is about pain? Do I believe that I have to have these little cuts, these little pains, these little sacrifices? That this is a necessary, obligatory part of life? Now, it is a very common belief out there. Don't get me wrong. I mean, a lot of people believe this, but it's not necessary. Now, I hear people saying, well, how do you make sure you stay healthy, and how do you make sure that you're financially stable, and how do you make sure, that you're not neglecting your family members and this and that, and I'm going to go back to what I've said over and over again, especially in the last few weeks. You are letting your ego rule things here. You're letting it run the show. And you just don't want to do that. You just don't want to do that. Because when the ego runs things, it's going to do things in sometimes the most painful way possible, especially if it believes that that's necessary. It's going to do things in a way that's hard and takes a lot of effort, because your ego believes in that. That's what it's all about. You have to make things happen. And so you just don't want to give it that opportunity to have that chance to run things for you. Do you really believe that if your soul, your higher self, your core essence were in charge, that you'd be experiencing these little pains, these little sacrifices, these little things that you don't want to do every day? Do you really believe that that is the path of least resistance, that that is the only road available to you? I hear people say all the time, life is about suffering. Life is, you don't always have pleasant things you want to do. And that's somewhat, in some senses, true. I mean, there are some things that you might not be 100% joyful about. But the overall feel of life should be positive. And it just doesn't feel like it's that way for you. And it absolutely should be. So, do you really believe that if your soul were running things, if you're connecting with your core essence, that things would look like this? That you would have to ask this question about, 1,000 little cuts and whatnot? I don't think so, personally. I don't think that that's the way. I just don't think that that's the way. Now, you might say, well, how do I not do this? I will give a couple brief examples because I don't want to go way overboard like last time. Let's take financial security. And you say, cutting out minor spending. I find reading like what financial people have to say about this stuff useful in a certain sense, but you also want to be careful that their beliefs don't kind of get to you, because a lot of them will be about like spending at a minimum and sacrificing this and that and not getting things that you really want and that kind of thing. I hear that stuff and I'm like, well, that's their opinion. I just toss it out, because we know as law of attraction users that that's not how it is. Okay. I will tell you that for me, and this is, it's just in the last year that I've really become financially stable. I deny myself very, very few things. I would actually say nothing, because if I want something, I create a goal and I save up for it. I say, well, I should be able to get this by next month or by the next 2 months or by 6 months if it's a big thing or whatever. I put aside this and that, whatever. And I'll also say, well, if retirement's important, so I'll put aside this much, send it into my IRA, every month, and that's that done. And it's a both and. I contribute to the IRA and other investment accounts I have too, and I spend things. I like, one of my things I like to order in food because it's convenient and I like it. I like to buy things, especially technology, and I do all of that. And it's not. I don't feel like I'm being denied. I don't feel like I'm sacrificing. Now, if I want something enough, then that will create tension in me and I will create the income to have it. So I think you're looking at things in a negative sense where you're saying, well, I can't have this and I can't do that and whatnot. And that's not how it is. I would look at things in a positive sense where you say, well, this is what I want. Maybe I can't have it right now, but I will create a goal and it will happen. Now you could say, what about caring for relatives? Okay. Well, I don't know what the situation is. Is there someone else in your family that would be more excited, more willing to do that? A lot of us let guilt play into this, And I saw this firsthand because my mother, when my grandmother on my mother's side was getting sick, was getting harder to take care of, my mother was the one taking care of her for a long time. And then eventually it just got too much for her and she passed it on to her sister. And, it was not easy. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but she did that, And so, is there another solution? Is there someone else that could take care of this person? Or is there even a better solution? I don't think you should ever feel obligated. And I think there's a similar thing. You've mentioned the health subject. And I think there's something similar there. I don't want to touch every single one, but it's the same thing where you're looking at, this is what I have to do, and I'm saying, is it? What if you can have everything? What if you can eat, have your cake and eat it too? And so that's what I would look at. What are the alternate solutions? Do you really need to live a life of pain? Or, can you find another solution? So that's really the big thing. Yes, you're going to have tension as you approach your goals. Yes, you're going to have little things here and there, little sacrifices or whatever you want to call it. I don't like that word sacrifice because it makes it sound like we're denying ourselves something, and I don't think we have to. But little pains here and there. But it's for the purpose of having something we want. It's not because the universe is dictating, this is what you must do to be a good person, you know? That's not how it is. So it's just about what you want and the process of getting there. So I would invite you to rearrange how you see your life, how you see your obligations, your responsibilities. I hate those words. And reframe things into, what do I want? Make yourself first. I'm not saying to abandon your relatives and whatnot. I'm just saying make yourself first and find a way to make everything else work. And you will. Once you give yourself that permission, you will absolutely find a way to make everything else work. But right now, you're not putting yourself first, and you're having all these little pains, and you're putting up with what you can, and you're saying, well, I just can't take any more. It's because you're not doing things the way you're supposed to do them. So turn that around, and I think that it'll go a lot better. I hope that this helps. I think it's a very detailed topic. There's lots more you can say on that, but hopefully it's a good introduction. So again, if you have questions for Reader's Questions, you can go to co-creationcoaching.org/ask and ask it there. And if you'd like to be notified when I post videos like this, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel or come over to co-creationcoaching.org and subscribe to my mailing list where you'll be notified of all my new posts, and you'll receive my free checklist, 10 reasons you aren't getting results with the law of attraction. Once again, I'm Brandon Oliveras from Co-Creation Coaching, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. As always, anything is possible.